Did the Men of Iron have souls? That's the first question we're going to ask, followed by who the Men of Iron worship as their Omnissiah. The Men of Iron were created during the dark age of technology by humanity. They fulfilled a role on the front lines during a war, explored worlds when they were found, etc. And as this carried on, they rebelled, starting a period known as the cybernetic revolt. Few of them remain in the 40k time, but one noted one does. UR025 from Guy Haley's short story. A priest from the Mechanicus finds him and attacks him. Subordination imperatives leapt in frantic spikes from the Magos. They found no purchase on UR025's tightly encoded soul. There it is. They do have some sort of soul. Now it's a little fuzzy what a soul is in 40k. I would say for a human with a reflection in the warp that it's your animus, the thing that makes up you, your memories, your personality, everything that makes you, you. Now let's look at those words again. Tightly encoded soul. The word encoded means it's encrypted or ciphered, in other words, hard to get access to, which was the purpose of the transmission to make him a subordinate to the Magos, to bring the Man of Iron within the Magos' control. This to me means this is not a human soul with that reflection in the warp. This is an AI soul. Now what could that mean? We know simpler creatures like animals and plants have a reflection in the warp, but the Man of Iron is not living in that sort of way. We can gain some insight into a Man of Iron's soul using the ancestor cores of the Leagues of Votan. They are advanced thinking machines. Inside their data stacks, it holds everything the kin need to survive, including a handy functioning STC. In M40, the kin upload the minds of their dead into the ancestor cores, and also we discover the cores have a shadow in the warp. The codex tells us, so bright do their artificial intellects shine, that kin voidfarers are even able to use them as localized beacons within the warp, and this specifically mentions their intellects. In the most recent and only Votan novel, we get a POV of an Iron Kin who feels and acts as if he is alive, getting nervous and worried, etc. So it makes sense that Votan warp presence will be shared by the Iron Kin and the Men of Iron. So I think that it's the data in each that makes up their sense of self, their animus, their soul that reflects in the warp. What about their Omnissiah? Once again, UR025 has an excerpt for us. When challenged by the Magos and the Omnissiah is mentioned, he says, "You know nothing of either," said UR025. "I have met the Omnissiah, the actual one, not the earthling corpse. He would find you extremely disappointing." So what being could have brought together the Men of Iron to worship? And where would such a person or entity reside? Let me build up the picture. Mechanicum by Graham McNeil starts with Dahlia, who was recruited by Coriel Zeth, the mistress of Magma City, which is the Forge World, around the time of the heresy reaching Mars. She was asked to help build the Akashic Reader. The device is a throne surrounded by thousands of psychers. Dahlia has some connection to the warp, and Zeth says, with that, she can read the Akashic record, the wellspring of every thought, action and deed, and there find old technology. And when the device works, the chamber is filled with thunderheads of anger, zephyrs of regret, hailstorms of longing, hurricanes of love and betrayal. And she saw this was the source of all knowledge. The psychers, with all that juice flowing through them, begin to die. Jonas, the psyker on the throne, says he has seen all knowledge, the dragon of Mars and the light of Mars, and he knows the secret of where the dragon is buried, which he tells Dahlia before he dies. So he has seen things that he could never know, and so I think that it did tap into the warp, but the tech behind Zeth allowed it to filter through all the emotions there, to the knowledge, to look at the warp in a particular way, with a certain filter in mind, to ignore those emotions and see only the data. Thus why they can access the knowledge there. That would also explain why everyone was not possessed by demons, because of the type of warp search they initiated. Think on it. The warp is soul energy. Souls are made of memories and lives lived, and everyone pretty much ends up there. That's a lot of knowledge. Linking in with that, we have the example of an AI called the Spranza, an Arc Mechanicum. The AI is powerful. It's like a mobile Mechanicum Forge World, this ship. When it was woken, such was its power. it took over and assimilated together all the minds of the Mechanicus machine spirits nearby into one Gestalt mind. When Omegos Kotov interacts with it, he sees it has a fully functioning STC on board, and that it holds information dating back to the golden age of humanity. As he sees it, the spranza was the greatest secret of all, and in its heart it held the truth of all things, the key to unlocking all that the Mechanicus had ever dreamed. Yet that knowledge was sealed behind impenetrable barriers, bound in the heart of the mighty vessel, for good reason. The knowledge of the men of iron and gold and their ancient ancestors was encoded in its very bones, enmeshed within every diamond helix of its structure. We also get the sense the ship is something more. Kotov speaks with it via his mind link and learns. It gives itself a long list of names, one of which we note is Akasha, which is very similar to Akashic and the Reader, like the Akashic record, and it does say it's lived for aeons and lived by millions of names, and that if its body is damaged, it could return. But this is Omegos, who would look up to such a creature like a puppy to its mother. However, during the novel we get a few short passages from the point of view of the spranza that have convinced me it's more, and following is part of that. They are grains of sand swirling around the base of a vast mountain of knowledge. There are heights of knowledge whose existence the grains can never even guess at, let alone comprehend. They claim ancient texts of false and forgotten gods contain all the universe's knowledge, as though such a thing is beyond Akasha. For one dangerous moment, the grains of sand came close to ascending the mountain in one giant leap. The galaxy teetered on the edge of a precipice as the key turned in a door that should never be unlocked. One singular consciousness threaded the needle to pierce the veil between their world and Akasha, unpicking the weave that separates all things and no things. But it was not to be. The door slammed shut, perhaps forever. Knowledge must be earned, not simply stolen as Prometheus once stole fire and set mankind upon his course. Now, to me, that clearly speaks about the incident with the Akashic Reader. So this tells us that the record exists and that the AI, the spranza, can access it, which is why it has one of the names in the past related to it, and it's chill about its physical body being destroyed. But the spranza AI is not the Omnissiah itself. So I have come to the conclusion that the Omnissiah that UR025 refers to is the knowledge within the reader, the sum of all knowledge of every being that has existed in the past and whose soul has passed into the warp. Maybe the data from the living men of iron migrates there when they die, or is linked to that place with its tightly encoded soul and some dark age tech. It seems fitting that an AI would look on such a thing as a god, when the men of iron themselves were made from humanity's spark of knowledge and creation. The Akashic Reader is their Omnissiah. Does it have its own sense of spirit, perhaps? But we can't say for sure without future evidence. If the men of iron had true souls, I might have argued otherwise. So what do you think to the men of iron's souls? What do you think is their true Omnissiah? Comment and let me know your thoughts. And if you like this video on the men of iron, try this one.